Hey guys, welcome back to the Clack Shack, and this is going to be a video that I can promise you have never seen anything like I'm about to show you. I have had several lasers in the shop. I have several lasers. I watch a lot of laser videos. I've been all over the internet, and I have never seen a laser quite like this one that I'm about to show you tonight. Now, I'm not real sure exactly how well this video is going to go out. This is, like I said, I just got this thing in a couple of nights ago. I emailed the company to make sure that this thing wasn't top secret, and I haven't got a reply back. So it's been 48 hours. I asked them if I could go ahead and start making videos with it. Nobody's responded, so hey, check your email. But anyways, I promise you guys, this is going to be a machine that you've never seen anything like it. So if you like seeing new lasers and seeing some of the innovations, then stick around. All right, guys, to start off with, I'm going to try to pronounce the name of this machine for you. And I'm going to show you the little pamphlet that it comes with. And I'm going to go through some of the things that I already know about it that are good, and some of the things that I already know that I'm not too crazy about. So I'm not even going to try to pronounce this. This is the name of the machine. All right. It is spelt SRWOR. SRWOR, maybe. I don't know. Okay. That is definitely not an Alabama word. So this is the book that it came with. This is the only book it came with. It didn't come with a thumb drive. It didn't come with an SD card. It didn't come with anything other than this little pamphlet that looks like something you would be handed when you went to a museum or maybe to an amusement park. There are no in-depth directions on how to set this thing up. Okay, guys? There is a QR code right here that says video tutorial. And first off, packaging was pretty good. I mean, it was nestled into a nice big foam package. And this thing, guys, it is heavy, okay? This is not your extruded aluminum lightweight machines that I typically deal with. This thing's pretty heavy. Once you see how it works, you'll understand why that extra weight is important. So the first thing I want to do, just to show you, because if I tell you, you won't believe me, just to show you, is that this machine is capable of engraving 400 millimeters wide by as far as you can drag your cables, okay? And that was a little hard for me to believe in the beginning, was how in the world can a machine engrave 400 millimeters, but then let's say I had a 12-foot piece of wood that I wanted to write text all the way down this 12-foot piece of material. This machine actually can do that. I didn't believe it. I was a bit of a skeptic too, but I've got the machine in the shop. I have had to limit it to 800 millimeters because my table is not all that large, and we're going to be using it on the table. So I've got it limited to 800 millimeter travel distance, and I've got it set on the honeycomb that I have that is 800 by 400. And so we're going to use that for a demo. But let me just get the show and tell out of the way, because you guys aren't going to believe what I'm about to show you here. So the honeycomb is showing to be almost 37.5 inches long, but it is about 95 centimeters long. So I've got plenty of workspace here. As you can see, this machine is quite the beast. All right, outside to outside, it is just shy of 32 inches, and it's coming in at about 80.5 centimeters. So it's a big boy, all right? It is not light. But the one benefit of the not being light is the way this thing works is it doesn't have tracks or anything. This is just my table, and I've got the honeycomb set down here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead. I've got this is this little piece of practice wood that I've been using, and I'm going to go ahead and send the machine down and frame that cut using light burn here. All right, as you can see, the machine moves down. It frames out. I do have it with the pointer diode is turned on this machine. So what I'm going to do now, guys, I've got that set to cut, and this thing is slaying 4.5 to 9 millimeter material in 2 passes. So we'll go ahead and run this cut and have it cut that little circle out of my material. Now the machine is rather loud, but it has an exhaust system built into it where it pulls the exhaust out inside the laser head. So the exhaust never actually comes out of the machine. This end of the machine, it does have some filters in there that filters it, and then the exhaust is blowed out through right here. But as you can see, there's the two circles, the two passes, and you can see that this little piece is loose. It cut it completely out. Now, my concern was this particular design, how accurate could it possibly be? It's rolling on the table. But the combination of the weight and the roller setup, keep your eye on that little cut out there, guys. I'm gonna send it out and run it again. Two passes on the same spot. It's surprisingly accurate for the way it's designed. I never thought it would be capable of doing what it's doing, especially on my table. This table is fairly smooth, but it's not a piece of glass. It's not 100%. But, I mean, it's almost the same hole, okay? I'm going to run it back out there one more time. Now, there is some alignment that you have to do with your honeycomb and the machine and all of that. And it came with a little, looks like a mouse, but it's actually kind of a laser square that you can use to make that a little easier. I do actually have plans on building myself a little set of railroad tracks for it. But that's 3 passes, that's taking it out and back 3 times. And there's my cut. Now, I did smoke it up a lot, okay? Because I run 3 cut speeds through the same hole. But you can see it hit the same spot for the most part. All right, guys, now that you kind of get the idea of what this thing's doing and how it's operating, I want to go through a few of the things that I have found about it that are good and I guess could be bad. All right, the biggest thing that I have found that this thing is innovative far beyond any other machines that I have is it has an automatic Z-axis. All right, it automatically focuses itself. You put a piece of material underneath the machine near the far left corner, and you hit the home button, and the axis goes back and forth, locates, you know, the far left corner. The head sits and raises. It has a little switch that's down near the head that measures the distance that it is from the material and sets the focus automatically. That's really cool. Well, as a byproduct of having that Z-axis, one other thing that I have found is if you're engraving and cutting, let's say a really thick piece of wood, like this 4.9, 4.5 millimeter material that I've got here. The cool thing is you can set your engrave to engrave on the surface so that you can get that really, really fine detail. But then when you get ready to cut it out, you can go into your cut and change the Z-axis setting, and you can drop it down 2.5 millimeters so that your focal point's in the middle of the material, and it cuts it a lot easier. That's really cool. It's really effective with this machine. They're saying that the output of this machine is 11 watts, but it is laying waste to this 4.9 millimeter material in 2 passes. I could probably slow it down a little more and do it in 1, but I don't like going below 6 millimeters per second. So I'm running at 6 millimeters per second with 2 passes, and I'm getting clean drops. But there are some other things that it has incorporated. It also has a air purification system. And I know, guys, filters is always going to be a concern. But the way that it works, so far, it's working well. I haven't even seen any smoke coming away from it because it actually has like a little vacuum nozzle that comes down where the laser impacts the material. And I'll try to get the camera down there in a little bit and show you exactly how it works. But it is literally sucking the smoke out of the hole and into the little vacuum tube. It travels through some ductwork inside the machine over to the filter, and then it expels the air out the front of the machine. So it's pretty neat. Like I said, very innovative. The only thing that I can say is those filters, as we all know, are going to eventually stop up, and then you have a consumable that is associated with the machine. But for that matter, you could take and remove the filter and just pipe that thing out, you know, put you a vent to it. It just has like a little grate on the front of the machine, and with a 3D printer, a little creativity, it wouldn't take a whole lot to change that over and put like a little outlet on there. And it may be one of those things that later on they upgrade and put an exhaust outlet on there, And all you would really need would be a hose, because it has a fan built in it already that is pulling the air from the cut. And it's really only needing like a 1-inch diameter hose. So you could, you know, it wouldn't take much engineering to fix an exhaust system for this machine. And with a 1-inch hose, you know, you could set it to where it would go as far as you wanted it to. So it's pretty neat, but I'm gonna get to show you a few more things that I've learned about it, things that I like about it, and like I said, there are some things that I don't like as well. Let's get back over to the machine and do some playing. All right, guys, one thing that I will tell you is important with this machine is that you get the machine itself and your work area needs to be squared. That way, as the machine moves down, it doesn't run into your honeycomb and result in moving your product. Now, they sent this little mouse looking thing right here. And what this is basically, it took me a minute to figure out what it is, but it's basically a square that is a laser. So you put this guy down there and it will project a light beam in the form of a laser showing you, you know, where everything is square. And that's cool. If you were doing a piece of wood or something like that that was, you know, quite lengthy, this would come in handy for making sure that it was perfectly aligned. However, when I'm using my honeycomb, I have found that all I really need is my handy little tri-square here. And I just put the tri-square up against the honeycomb and against the side of the machine. And as long as I'm close to square, I'm good. So I've got that set up. It is very, very close to square. We're good to go. Now, to confirm and just make sure, before I start doing any cutting or anything, what I like to do is set a burn at the other end of the workspace, which is 800 millimeters that way, and just frame it and make sure it doesn't hit anything. So if you watch the gap between the honeycomb and the machine, I can see that I've got plenty of space. Wouldn't hurt me to move it just a little this way. All right, so now I have went up on the move tab, and what you want to do is go in and set a position, and I named this position home because the way this machine works, home is not necessarily home. What home does is it sets the focus. I'm going to hit the home button on the move screen and show you what happens. It's going to drop twice. It's setting the focus of the laser. It's going to move to the left, hit the limit switch, back off, hit the limit switch, back off. That is all the way left over here. But in order to get the machine back down here, I use the move to preset positions and set one to 0, 0, and just hit go. And what that's going to do, that's going to bring the machine all the way back down here to this bottom left corner, which is the corner of my workspace. That's a little bit of a workaround, and there may be some coding that needs to be changed in the machine, but like I said, guys, I'm figuring this thing out as I go. But anytime you hit the home button, you need to have material underneath the laser head because it is going to do the drop, raise, and set the Z focus. All right, guys, for the next demonstration, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to put just a line engrave out here on the far end of the workspace, and I'm going to go ahead and frame that. This is just going to be my logo, but it's just going to be a line and not a fill. So I'm just going to frame. You do have to kind of squat down and look under it to see where it's framing because of the way the housing is. But if you were sitting in a chair next to the machine, it would make it a lot easier. But when I'm standing up talking to you guys, I do have to bend over and look. I have the laser set to be 5% output while framing, and that seems to be working pretty well. I tried some lower settings, but it was kind of hard to see. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. This is set at 50 speed, 100% output, and it's just doing the line file. The one thing that I've been having some problems with when I first got this thing set up was instead of running buffered on the Wi-Fi connection, it seems to be a lot more dependable if you set it on synchronous. So I don't know if the access point in the machine is going to sleep between layers, or I don't know what's going on, but it was having some issues with losing connection during a lengthy engrave. Changed it over to synchronous, and I've had successful engraves every time doing synchronous. When I change it back to buffered, it starts having failures again. So I've determined that this machine needs to be run set to synchronous. So I've got it on there, that burn. I'm gonna go ahead, let me double check those settings. That doesn't look like that's cutting this. It's set at 100 speed and 100 millimeters per second. 100 millimeters per second, 100% output. So I'm gonna send it down one more time, and we're just gonna run it a few times and see how much offset we get with this design, with it moving back and forth, because you gotta think any slight deviation with this much distance should show a major shift on the line up here. So if it's reasonably consistent, then there'll be less likely that we'll see any deviation in the line work of the file that I've got burning. And that was one of my big concerns, was as it goes down and back, if it hits anything or if it slips any at all, it's going to cause the artwork to shift one way or the other. So I've been doing some testing and just doing multiple line burns to see how consistent it is. I'm going to run this one more time. And like I said, this is just a line. This is not a feel. And like I said, I want to do that to be able to see the shift. I do have it set to return to 0, 0 after a burn. With this machine and the way that it sits over the top of the workpiece, I think that is absolutely required, because it'd be a little challenging to get the material out from under it with it sitting on top of it like that. So I set the machine to return to 0, 0 after an engrave. All right, so that's several times of running it out and bringing it back. And as you can see, there is a little problem with consistency with the lines. You can see the line shifted over, shifted up just a little. So that was one of my major concerns with this machine. So with that being said, it's probably not one that you're gonna want to replace your closed frame machine with to try to jig things out. I'm gonna have to put this guy as being more of a specialized burn machine, because if your goal is to engrave, you know, a long piece of material, it seems very effective. The cuts that I've done, I've been able to go out and back a couple of passes, no problems. But when you start going back and forth too much, it does have a slight deviation. And a lot of that could be contributed to my table. If you had more of a smooth top to run it on, that might help. But I still think there's going to be some room for deviation in that. Now, the only other big thing that I can say about the machine is, by the time you put the honeycomb under the machine without any kind of risers or anything, and you put the material on there, you've only got a few millimeters of adjustment in the Y-axis. So if you wanted to do thicker items, you know, you're not going to be putting a rotary underneath this guy. That's not what it's intended to do. You're not going to be engraving anything really thick unless you build maybe some tracks for it to where, you know, it could run back and forth on the tracks, and it would keep it up off of the platform. You're going to be limited to probably about an inch and a quarter thick material underneath this thing, but it will engrave for pretty much infinity. You just have to go in the light burn, change the size of your work area, and let the machine go further, and then come back. Like I said, the whole building in a set of tracks, I think, might be helpful, but that's one of those things that you just need to modify it best you could. But it is relatively heavy compared to most of your typical LED diodes. And I do have it powered on, but as you can see, I think some of the discrepancies that I'm getting is because it is dusty out here in my shop. And these little rubber wheels right here are getting quite a bit of dirt on them, and they're locked when the machine is powered on. These guys won't move. But with all this dust and stuff, I think I may be getting some slippage on these wheels because of the dust. So I don't want to blame the machine for not being entirely accurate. This is the little switch that it uses to sense when the head comes to the ground and goes back up. You can see right here, that is the little vacuum hose that pulls the air in, and there's a little corrugated hose that runs back to the back and winds up looping back this way to here. Pretty simple design. The inner workings of it inside here are very similar to the closed loop machines. It's got a couple of steel rails in here. It does have a connecting bar here that runs from each side of the wheels to keep these wheels synchronized. So it's relatively simple build, but I think the innovation of having the automatic focus, automatic Z-axis, and it being able to go well beyond 400 by 400, I think those are kind of really cool features. But like I said, I don't think this thing's going to be replacing a lot of my machines that I have, because it can't do the jig work and the really precise stuff that my other machines can do. But, you know, I have a lot of people call me and want me to do, hey, can you do a sign that's 6 foot long? You know, hey, can you engrave, you know, a piece of wood with, you know, I want it 6 foot and I want the letters a foot tall. Can you do that? I think that's more in this guy's wheelhouse, because instead of having to break up that artwork, you could just expand your workspace to 6 foot, put the material down, make sure you get everything squared, and I think you could do it with this. I haven't tried it yet. Just got the machine, haven't tried doing any really long burns, but I do see the potential, especially, like I said, if I build me a set of tracks for it to run on, so that I know that the tracks are level and the tracks are even and all that stuff. I think it's very possible. This would come in handy when doing like large tables or large coffee tables, stuff like that. I think that is going to be where this machine excels. But as you can see, it's pretty unique. I had never seen one like it. I do like the idea and the design, and it wouldn't take me a whole lot of material to build a set of rails to let this guy run back and forth on, and be able to raise it up, you know, have it up higher to where I could put thicker material underneath it. All right, guys, for my next demonstration, and we're going to test this together because I haven't tried this yet. What I'm going to do now, I've cut me a piece of cardboard that is just a slight bit bigger than my honeycomb, and I've got it laid in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, and I'm going to hit the home button, which is going to set my focus for my machine on the cardboard. All right, once it does that, using the move command, I'm going to tell it to go to my position that I have designated as home, which is 0, 0. It's a little different than what you're used to doing it this way, but this was the best way that I found to operate it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set myself a square, and I'm going to make it almost as big as the workspace. I'm just going to do it from the top of the workspace all the way down to the bottom of the workspace. One big, huge square. All right, so first thing I'm going to do, just to make sure I don't run this thing off the table, is I'm going to frame it. All right, so that's where the bottom's going to be, going all the way to the other end. Okay, whoo! That's the only thing that worries me with this thing. I've got it set to 800 by 400, but you guys, you know how sometimes these lasers get a mind of their own, and I'm afraid I'm going to run it off the other end of the table. So there we go. I've got it framed. All right, I've got this cut, and this is cardboard. I'm going to hope that I don't start a fire with this, but I've got it set to 100% power at 100 speed. So I'm going to go ahead and burn that. If it starts to flame up, we may have to stop it. So, there we go. And that square, guys, is 349 wide, 751 long, just on the square itself. So I'm gonna go ahead and do one more. I'm gonna stretch that thing on out a little bit towards the edge of the work surface. And center it. And I'm gonna run it one more time. Now the shape is 366 wide by 788 long. All right, before we move the cardboard, let me throw a design out there, and I'm gonna put a pretty big design, which is gonna be my logo. I'm gonna set it in the center of the work area. Let me delete these two lines that we made. Take those off of there, and I'm going to set this. They say that this machine can run up to 300 millimeters per second. I haven't tried it yet. So this is cardboard. I don't want to start a fire. So I think we're going to try it. Going that fast, maybe it won't start a fire. So we'll go ahead and frame first. This should be the center of the workspace. I've got this set to 300 millimeters per second, 100% output, 127 LPI, and it's in field mode. And it's cardboard, which I don't do a lot of. So that may take a minute. I can smell cardboard burning, so the filters don't necessarily take out all the smell, but as you can see, the smoke's doing pretty well. I do think it needs some lights under it. Just my thought. Yeah, 300 millimeters per second is definitely not going to start a fire. I'm just hoping you'll be able to see it. Keep in mind, this is an 11-watt machine, comparable to the 10-watt, Comgro Z1 or whatnot. So I'll be back once this thing completes, guys. All right, guys, my cardboard experiment has concluded, and I just want to kind of show you if I can get it to where I can see. You can see it here. I run the speed a little high, but I did actually managed to leave an engraving on the board, and that's the engraving I got. I probably should have went much slower. I thought the cardboard would catch on fire if I did, so I went kind of high. You can see the two little lines that I made. Everything looked square on them. It didn't have any wiggles or moves or anything like that. For the way the system works, it seems dependable enough so far. So I'm going to move you over here to the other side of the machine. I have found out that the cable that they gave me, of course, is way too short. The port is kind of hidden on the end of the machine for the interface, but I'm just going to walk you around here, show you what everything looks like on this side of the machine, and give you an idea what to expect over here. All right, guys, the video that's on the little handout kind of goes over this, if you can understand the language. It's using some type of AI to tell you about all this stuff. It's a little hard to follow. Hidden right here, which there's no markings or anything around it. Right here on the side, that's where the CF card goes to be able to use the offline controller. This is actually, apparently this is where the machine connects to the computer to use the software that they provide or to use Lightburn. It also has the capability of being controlled by an app or controlled with the offline controller here. Around here on the back, this is apparently where you would connect a roller, it says. I'm guessing they mean a rotary tool. And apparently, if this is in the up position, it disables the wheels. And if this is in the down position, it enables them. And if you flip that switch. So basically what it's saying is that this switch, it disables the Y-axis and enables this port here to be used with their rotary. Haven't seen the rotary. I don't know what it looks like, but that's what the video says. Of course, here's your power wire. Not real sure what this little knockout plug right here is for. It's got like a rubber grommet. Almost looks like it maybe for, you know, future air assist or something to go in. Not real sure. But give me a second. I'm going to move you around and show you the interface here. All right, guys, so this is a control panel that's on the top of the machine. It is touchscreen. It has the capability of doing all the functions that the machine will do. You can move the machine forward. You can move the machine backwards. And it also keeps up with the coordinates up here in the top corner. So if you hit it too much, you can get it to go back to zero, all zeros up here. That's pretty handy. It's got a home button, which what that does is that runs that Z-axis down, and it also moves the machine over and puts it over here to the far left corner. And you can also control, using the settings menu, you can set the origin settings. I've got the origin settings set to 0 and 0. You can actually change that to the center of your workspace or wherever you prefer. But because of my experience with other machines, I prefer 0, 0. And you have another little control panel here. The one thing that it took me a minute to realize is the network settings. And you can go in and change the configuration, whether you want to use it as a hotspot and connect to it with the app, or whether you want to add it to your network. And you can go and put your network name in here and all that to be able to connect to it. So that's pretty neat. It also has, if you put the card in it, you also have the option that you can go in and select your drawings. I've got them in a folder called Files. But like I said, the home, this screen, pretty cool. It's neat. I don't plan on using it a whole lot, but it also shows you the IP address of the machine once you get it connected to your network. So the capabilities of controlling the machine, again, are their software, their app, light burn, or using the offline controller. Those are your options. All right, guys, that's the quick where I'm at now on this machine. I'm still not sold on it, but I'm still not against it. I do, however, think, like I said, if you were going to buy one machine to try to do everything with, this probably is not the machine for you. But for folks like myself that do, you know, longer projects and would love to be able to have a machine that has the capability of engraving a 8, 10, 12 foot piece of material, this is something cool to try out. Now, the longer the material gets, the more the tolerances are going to become and the higher the margin of error. And it's going to be challenging to try to engrave something that's 8 foot long and not have it running downhill or uphill. It would require a lot of alignment. But with this machine, the way that it's configured, the way that you can set it up in Lightburn, it is possible, I believe. I'm going to get to that testing later and try that out. I've got a couple of things I want to try to design on it and burn on it to see how well they turn out. But it's definitely an interesting twist on diode lasers. This is something that I had never seen, and when they reached out to me to ask me if I wanted to try the machine, I had never heard of it. I didn't know what it was. There's no videos out there. I have YouTubed this thing. I have searched, you know, Googled it. You cannot find it anywhere except for at the site in which they want you to purchase it, and that's on, I believe it's AliExpress. So I'll add a link down below if you want. All right, guys, that pretty much concludes it for this machine. I wanted to go over some of the things about it. I want to kind of introduce you guys to it. Like I said, it's not necessarily going to be a laser engraver for everyone, but there are people that have that unique need that this might be something you want to try. Maybe a handy little tool for you. Who knows? It is kind of a hefty price point, but you know, if laser is what you're doing and you're making money off of them, if this thing can function and do those 12 foot, 10 foot engraves or 5, 6 foot engraves and keep from having to try to line everything up, it might be a worthy investment for you. But if you're not trying to engrave anything bigger than 800 millimeters, then it's probably not going to be for you. But I hope you find the video helpful, informative, or whatever. But that's going to be it for now. But until next time, guys, as always, be safe and have a good day.